If I'm being honest, I would buy this just for the bracelet. Hi everyone and welcome to Shaluso, and yes, today it's another episode of Watch on My Mind, the segment where I just talk about watches that have been on my mind as I'm looking for my next watch purchase. And today we are talking about the Omega De Ville Coaxial GMT. So let's dive right into it and start talking a little bit about the history of this watch. So for a little bit of background, the De Ville line was released in 1967. Then in 1991, they started development of their first central tourbillon, and in 1994, they released it. And this was the very first watch that featured a central tourbillon, not just for Omega, but also for watchmaking in general. And it's a great example of how Omega is really capable of doing high horology, these crazy complications, just because they stick to the tried and true GMTs, chronographs, and dive watches doesn't mean necessarily they're incapable of making the higher complications. It just means they save it for really special uses, and when they do, they make sure it counts. But how does this relate to the De Ville Coaxial GMT? Well, you'll see as I walk you through a little bit more of the history, but for now you have to pay attention that this does feature the same case of the watch that we're talking about today, and it's so beautifully elegant. The De Ville is supposed to be Omega's dress line. However, it's still very usable, and I think it's a great testament again to Omega making its watches being amazing all-rounders, bias notwithstanding. But this particular example of the De Ville case is so beautiful just because of the lugs. They have an amazing stepping to them that wouldn't actually seem out of place on something like a Vacheron Constantin, which is another brand that is known for making amazing lugs on their cases. So bear all that in mind as I explain the rest of the history. So then in 1999, Omega released their first example of the coaxial escapement in a production watch. In this case, it was a limited edition of 1,000 pieces, again in the De Ville line, using this same case. So they were using the De Ville essentially as their test bed for some of these innovations. The coaxial escapement is still an insane innovation, and it offers great value when you consider that you get it in watches even that cost less than 5,000 US now. So for that time, it was a huge step. And it was something that has defined 21st century Omega. Of course, then the Calibre 2500 was mass-produced in all of its lines, including in my own Seamaster. And then in the early 2000s, around 2003, 2004, they released the Coaxial GMT. This featured the Calibre Omega 2628, which was based on the Calibre 2500, which in itself was based on the ETA 2892, modified to have the coaxial escapement, as well as having a GMT function in this case. So Omega was offering a COSC-certified GMT movement in the same case as their central tourbillon and featuring a bracelet that is simply to die for. When we're talking about the looks on this watch, the case is very nice, but the bracelet is on another level. And this is the same bracelet that was featured on their central tourbillon in Sedna Gold, which costs 6 figures. This really makes this something very special, and it's what drew me to it. When I was just browsing for watches and I came across this Omega GMT that has the same bracelet as the central tourbillon. It's this sort of brick road style bracelet, I think they call it, because when it's featured in the yellow gold, it reminds you of the yellow brick road from the Wizard of Oz. So I think it's such an interesting looking piece. And then you look at the history, this is the generation of De Villes that were essentially pioneering Omega's technology advances and their watchmaking advances. And to this day, you still have stuff like the Hour Vision, which carry new movements. They serve as the test bed before things go into the 300M or the Planet Ocean or even the Speedmaster. So it's an interesting piece of the De Ville's history. And on top of that, it's extremely rare. It's extremely difficult to find examples of these, even fewer on the bracelet. And I think that comes down to the fact that it is, of course, intrinsically linked with that central tourbillon bracelet. But the crazy thing is, of course, that this doesn't cost central tourbillon money. You're not spending $120,000 on this. You're not even spending $50,000 on this. No, instead this, if you can find a good example, costs between $2,500 up until about $4,500 US, depending on quality. And obviously the big differentiator is if you can find it on that bracelet. And for me, this is an extremely tempting proposition because this is still a great all-rounder. The sizing is very good. It can be your dress watch as much as it can be your day-to-day watch. It's only 38.7 millimeters, so it's not too big, only about 12 millimeters thick, so it's not too thick. Still has 100-meter water resistance, stainless steel, but it looks much more luxurious than that, of course, because of the design of the case, and it has that bracelet. Really, it's an amazing all-rounder, and it kind of has me wishing I didn't subscribe to the whole one brand, one watch thing. So should I maybe get this? But let me know in the comments below, what do you think of the Omega De Ville Co-Axial GMT? Do you think that this is something that is probably the ultimate all-rounder, the ultimate sort of barn find of a watch that is just hidden in the pages of history? Or is this just another watch that never hit and that's why no one remembers it or knows about it? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. And of course, if you like this video, make sure you like it and share it. If you want to see more pictures and infographics featured throughout this video, as well as all my others, make sure you follow me on Instagram at Shaluso. If you want to see more watch videos, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell as well so you know when my next video comes up. In any case, thanks for watching this video, and we'll catch you on the next one.